Welcome back again, everyone. It's DinaKalmeta here. And for today's show, I just have a few quick updates I'd like to bring to you. And I first would like to talk about Iran, because there were a lot of headlines last night and this morning about what could possibly take place in the Middle East. The Times of Israel is reporting that the United States on Thursday imposed travel restrictions on employees and their family members in Israel, expanding cautionary warnings for the region as tensions with Iran is on the rise. The U.S. notice citing increased regional tensions came as Iran said it was holding military drills aimed at enemy movements. And they also threatened a stronger retaliation against Israel. Staff in Israel and their relatives were advised not to travel outside the greater Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Beersheba until further notice. Traveling between the cities to the airport is allowed, according to the notice. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad advised American citizens on Thursday against traveling to Iraq, a day after the U.S. State Department decided to pull all non-essential personnel from the mission. The department also authorized the departure of non-essential personnel and family members from Bahrain and Kuwait, giving them an option on whether to leave the country. The United States' decision to reduce its footprint in the region was made after all U.S. embassies within striking distance of Iran were instructed to take steps to mitigate risk in the event of a possible Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, as any Israeli military action would almost certainly be met with an Iranian counterattack. Northern Africa and Eastern Europe were instructed to convene emergency action committees and to inform Washington of the steps that needed to be taken to minimize harm. Ynet News is reporting that the UK Maritime Trade Operations, a British maritime security agency, issued an unusual advisory on Wednesday warning commercial vessels in the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, and the Strait of Hormuz to exercise heightened caution due to what is called increased tensions in the Middle East that could escalate military activity and directly impact maritime security. President Trump on Thursday wouldn't say an attack by Israel on Iran was imminent, but warned that it could happen as the U.S. continues to pressure Iran on a nuclear deal, but simultaneously prepares evacuations from the Middle East, as I just mentioned. President Trump said, "I don't want to say imminent, but it looks like something that could very well happen." He said, "Look, it's very simple, not complicated. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Other than that, I want them to be successful. We'll help them be successful. We'll trade with them. We'll do whatever is necessary." Trump said ultimately he'd love to avoid conflict, but said that Iran is going to have to negotiate a little bit tougher, meaning they're going to have to give us some things that they're not willing to give us right now. The president said that the U.S. and Iran are fairly close to a pretty good agreement, but then added it's got to be better than pretty good enough. Trump told reporters on Wednesday that the U.S. has advised some evacuation efforts in the Middle East as the security situation with Iran could become dangerous amid the uncertain nuclear negotiations. He said they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place. We've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens. Now, Axios is reporting that the United States fears that Iran's response to the Israeli strike could be a massive casualty event. White House envoy Steve Witkoff privately warned top Senate Republicans last week that Iran could unleash a mass casualty response if Israel bombs their nuclear facilities. So why does this matter? Well, with Israel preparing to strike Iran quickly, if diplomacy fails this weekend, President Trump's envoy sounded the alarm about what could come next. Iran's retaliation could overwhelm Israel's defenses and cause heavy damage. Israeli officials say that the IDF forces are on high alert, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been waiting for a green light from Trump to make his move. Now, with that being said, the Jerusalem Post is reporting that Israel is considering to strike Iran in the coming days without U.S. support. So this is certainly a very serious and dangerous situation, and we can only hope and pray that cooler heads will prevail. Meanwhile, NBC News is reporting that there will be 1,800 rallies on Saturday in all 50 states. Same day, as I noted yesterday, as Trump's military parade. With that being said, Breitbart News is reporting that Senator Josh Hawley said on Wednesday he is launching an investigation into the funding of what occurred in Los Angeles. He wants to know who is financing it materially and supporting the coordinated demonstrations that have engulfed LA, so we shall see what happens there. In the meantime, Newsweek is reporting, as well as many other sources, that a patrol aircraft dispatched by Japan was intercepted by fighter jets launched from a Chinese aircraft carrier operating in the wider Western Pacific. China, which has the world's largest navy, deployed 2 of its aircraft carriers in active service beyond the first island chain on Saturday. The island defense line, comprising Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines, is in place to keep China's forces in check. But on Wednesday, the Japanese Defense Ministry reported an unusual approach by Chinese military aircraft toward the Maritime Self-Defense Force, stating that a P-3C patrol aircraft had 2 encounters with J-15 fighter jets launched from the aircraft carrier CNS Shandong. Photos were taken, and apparently the Japanese aircraft shows a Chinese fighter jet flying with a missile visible beneath its wing. Another photo shares a jet flying alongside the Japanese plane. While there was no damage to the Japanese aircraft and no injuries were reported among its crew, in either incident, Tokyo's defense minister expressed serious concerns, stating that the Chinese fighter jet's abnormal aerial maneuvers could lead to an accidental collision. Now, with that being said, the BBC is reporting, as well as many other sources, that talks aimed at cooling tensions between the US and China have ended in a deal, according to President Trump. This occurred just yesterday. He said that China had agreed to supply US companies with magnets and rare earth metals. This apparently occurred in London, with 2 days of intense talks to resolve conflicts that had emerged since the two sides agreed a truce in May. In the meantime, though, watchers are reporting that severe flooding has hit the Philippines on June 6, affecting hundreds of families and damaging infrastructure. Floodwaters reached neck-deep levels in some areas, and it rose rapidly within 45 minutes. No evacuations occurred, but 167 families were affected. Meanwhile, a state of disaster was declared for the city of Cibinal in Texas on June 11th, following intense storms that caused widespread damage. The National Weather Service stated that the damage was most likely caused by the straight-line winds and not a tornado. Very interesting. Do you guys remember the piece I gave you on, I think it was on Monday, about weird winds that would start to occur due to the black star? I wonder if this could be the cause of that. Just throwing that out there. An EF2 tornado touched down in eastern Erie County, Pennsylvania on June 9th, producing estimated peak winds of 115 miles per hour. The tornado caused structural damage to 2 barns, killed livestock, and moderately damaged a nearby home before dissipating into a wooded area. In Africa, at least 49 people have perished following severe flooding and an extreme cold front that affected South Africa's Eastern Cape province from June 7th to June 10th. Apparently, there was a strong winter storm system that brought heavy rainfall, localized flooding, and snowfall, and also high winds. Snow in Africa. Is that normal for those of you that live in Africa? Let me know in the comments. Over in Taiwan, there was a strong and shallow earthquake that registered at a 6.4. Over in New York on June 9th, the National Weather Service is confirming an EF1 tornado in Great Valley, New York. I don't know, you guys. I remember living there, and I don't remember seeing tornadoes. Is this becoming a normal thing out there? On June 10th, flash floods triggered by intense rainfall slammed into northern Vietnam. Rescue and relief operations were underway. So with all of that said, those are your headlines for today. Please do leave your comments below this video. I'd love to hear from all of you. Get your thoughts on what's happening in the Middle East. When you have some time, come and visit us on our social media sites, as well as our website at www.cww7news.com. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. And until next time, stay safe.